So Meta have just announced a new model which generates high quality 3D assets. They say that these assets can have textures and can be generated in under 1 minute. And this announcement is particularly impressive for a number of reasons, as it solves many of the problems that were being experienced in this area previously, mainly those problems being the speed and the quality of these models. They announced this new model on their website, posting a paper with all the details. So how good really is this new model, and how significant is this in the scheme of things? Let's take a look into this. So the new page up on Meta's website is simply titled Meta 3D Gen, and they say that we introduce Meta 3D Gen, a new state-of-the-art fast pipeline for text to 3D asset generation, and then go on to summarize some of the key points of this model. Along with this, there is a very long paper explaining all the details in depth. Naturally, the paper is extremely long, so I'm going to run you through some of the key points that I found in it. So straight off the bat in the introduction, they talk about why this work is so important and why it's been such a challenge to get done before. They say that 3D generation has unique and difficult challenges not shared by other forms of media generation such as images and videos. Production-ready 3D content has exacting standards in terms of artistic quality, and then go on to list everything else that needs to be perfect. So let's go over the capabilities of Meta 3D Gen, and then we'll have a look at some of the examples of what they've managed to generate. So they've put the capabilities into two different stages, so different use cases can be split. Stage 1 is 3D asset generation. They say given a text prompt provided by the user, stage 1 creates an initial 3D asset using our Meta 3D Asset Gen. This step produces a 3D mesh with a texture and PBR material maps, and they say it takes about 30 seconds. And they go on to talk about stage 2, and stage 2 is split into two use cases. Use case 1, generative 3D texture refinement. Given a 3D asset generated in stage 1 and the initial text prompt used for generation, this stage 2 produces a higher quality texture and PBR maps for this asset. So the thing to gather from this is that stage 1 essentially builds the foundation up, and then stage 2 is the refinement part, generating higher quality textures for the model. And as well as that, there is stage 2 use case 2. Given an untextured 3D mesh and a prompt describing how you want it to look, stage 2 can be used to generate a texture for this asset. So this is if stage 1 was completely not involved, and rather you just gave the AI a 3D model and said, this is how I want it to look, create the materials for me, and it will do that for you. And both of these stage 2 use cases are 20 seconds approximately. So that 30 seconds plus the 20 seconds would take us to 50, which is in fact below 1 minute, which is what they were claiming here. And they talk about the performance as well. As we already know, it takes under 1 minute. That is a huge selling point, but one of the big problems with this area of generation was the quality of what was being generated, and that's what Meta has solved here. They say that texture gen outperforms prior texture generation approaches by developing an end-to-end network that also operates in mixed view and UV spaces. So that all sounds very impressive here, and you can probably imagine how this would be used in areas such as video games, where everything needs a model and everything needs a texture. A huge percentage of game development time is creating models, especially in really high quality games where everything needs to look as realistic as possible. This new type of AI 3D model generation could be an absolute game changer in those areas. So let's have a look at some examples. So they have this example here, and they say this is a visual comparison of the text to 3D generations obtained after Meta's 3D generation of stage 1 and stage 2. So on the left you have the first stage, which they said takes about 30 seconds and creates the model and textures, but then you also have stage 2 on the right, which creates, they believe, higher quality textures. And they say after doing user studies, these stage 2 generations had a win rate of 68% in texture quality over the first stage generations. So essentially they've got users in a room, and the users have been shown these different models, and they've asked them, which ones do you think look better overall? And 68% of these people voted for stage 2, and that is the one on the right there. So as well as the comparison from stage 1 to 2, they also show some of the specific models that they've managed to make and what prompts were used to get them. So they're definitely definitely are some bizarre ones here, but I think that's good for testing the model, because when you're making a game, not everything is going to be, you know, a computer on a table, like something really easy. For example, here they have a bear dressed as a lumberjack, which honestly the model is smashed out the park, and a hippo wearing a sweater. And then they have some more here. One particularly that stands out the most is the one that reads an orc forging a hammer on an anvil, and again it seems to have managed that really well. I imagine that the models they have for display on this paper are the best ones they have managed to create, and likely there are some bad ones, but still I think that is very impressive. Another notable one is the lionfish, which looks very highly detailed. And then I think this part is really important because it shows how incredible this advancement really is. Meta directly compare their model against others in the industry. They do this with 3 prompts, the first one being a stylish metal statue of a llama with a fancy Gen AI logo engraved on one side. And for this one it really doesn't come anywhere close, as I mean, as far as following the prompt goes, the only one that actually managed to get it right at all was Meta's. And then you have a sushi tray containing pugs. Definitely a weird prompt there. Some of the other models don't look terrible, like they've had a good go with this prompt, but it seems like most of them have messed it up, and again 3D Gen wins easily. And then finally you have an orc forging a hammer on an anvil, one of the ones I mentioned earlier. They likely picked this because it is so bizarre, and for this one most of them are again not particularly incredible, other than one of the other models, Tripo 3D, does manage to generate quite a high quality model. But one very important thing to note here is the time taken to generate these results, as by far Meta's model is the quickest, with the longest time here being CSM Cube, which takes an hour to generate the model, and they say that is not with materials included. And I think this comparison here highlights why this is so impressive. We haven't seen models nearly as accurate as this before in such a short generation time. Then they also do go on to show stage 2 working with some blank models. Here you can see an egg model with a little dragon coming out, and they try it with different styles, like for example a baby dragon with tribal tattoos, or a baby dragon with purple eyes hatching out of a fire egg, trying to test the limits of what this model understands for materials, but all very impressive there. Then you have the bear dressed as a lumberjack without his material, and they put him in baby clothes, which is definitely one thing to try. A straw outfit, a basketball outfit, and a tuxedo. The model did miss the trousers on the tuxedo, but overall I'd say very impressive. And they do show quite a few of these here, and I'll have some on the screen. If you want to keep looking at them, do just pause, as there's a few too many for me to run through here. And they also show examples of themes, showing the same models but with different materials based on different themes, like for example an underwater theme or a horror movie theme. So I definitely think this model could have a large impact if, for example, they did a partnership with Unity or Unreal Engine. It has serious potential to be a game changer in this industry, but having said that, it also comes with the potential of putting a lot of people out of work, as there is many people that do this kind of thing for a living. And as I say before, it's not exactly a quick process. It takes a lot of time to make these models. It's essentially a form of art. So it does seem that this area has reached the text to image point, where it seems like a lot of people might be losing their jobs very soon, but only time will tell. But do leave a comment, as I'm interested to know what you guys think about all this. But if you're still listening, I really appreciate you. Like and subscribe if you can, it really helps me out, and thanks for watching.